From ghostly manifestations that wander the twisting halls of historic hotels after dark, to entire townships whose aged structures purportedly harbor the restless spirits of past residents since deceased, are you ready to brave some of the most haunted places in North Dakota? Number 5. Sanhaven Sanatorium. Sanhaven Sanatorium, which is located off of Sanhaven Road, around 2.5 miles northeast of DUNSEITH, North Dakota, is a former state medical site and tuberculosis sanatorium that's grown wildly infamous regarding its chilling history and rumored resulting hauntings. Historically, in 1912, Sanhaven was constructed to accommodate growing numbers of TB patients. In 1923, it would acquire its own post office, allowing for it to act as an independent community, and in 1957, following the vaccine for tuberculosis, the site was transformed into an asylum for those with disabilities instead. Sadly, by the 1980s, the condition of the hospital and treatment of its patients had declined to the point that in 1987, it was closed down, and in 1992, the Turtle Mountain Band of the Chippewa tribe would purchase the expanse and actually maintain ownership to this day. In the present, Sanhaven lies in ruins, with plans for demolition and complete redevelopment underway, and unfortunately, unlike a good bulk of the other locations we've covered, this one's on private land, meaning that visiting without permission could make you the owner of a brand spankin' new trespassing charge, which, in North Dakota, is like $1,500 in possible jail time, so make smart choices. Tragically, during its time spent as both a sanatorium and asylum, this aged medical campus has played witness to countless deaths. Over preceding decades, a number of fatal accidents would transpire near, and in as recently as 2001, a teenaged boy actually fell through an open elevator shaft to his doom. Local legend tells that its surprisingly dark past has resulted in a range of supernatural activity, and those who have frequented Sanhaven have reported faces that materialize in broken windows, the sounds of a baby heard crying from somewhere out of sight after dark, and encounters with full-bodied apparitions that drift eerily about. Several informal investigations of the expanse have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EVPs, and extreme temperature fluctuations and abnormal readings on thermal grids, while a handful of terrifying accounts describe full-on spiritual attacks that have left visitors with very real injuries. Number 4. The Rough Riders Hotel. The Rough Riders Hotel, which is located off of 3rd Avenue out of Medora, North Dakota, is a historic lodging that derives its moniker after 26th President Teddy Roosevelt's volunteer cavalry unit, and namely due to the fact that he issued a prominent speech from its front balcony. Historically, in 1884, this weathered hotel site was first constructed and established under George Fitzgerald as the Metropolitan, and it would derive its design from the Merrill House Hotel out of Glendive of the Montana Territory. By 1905, following the aforementioned speech, this lodging would alter its moniker in honor of President Roosevelt and his loyal troop of cowboys, all who'd served through the Spanish-American War. In 1962, the Rough Riders Hotel was purchased under Harold Schaefer, who would completely dismantle the aged structure and who would restore it utilizing resulting salvageable materials. And more recently, in 2010, the expanse would welcome a sweeping renovation project, which saw through the additions of Theodore's Dining Room, TR's Tavern, 68 guest rooms, of a tower suite, event space, and of a conference facility. The Rough Riders Hotel remains open into the present. It's owned and operated under the Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation and offers a range of unparalleled accommodations alongside luxurious dining and drink options. While it's unknown who or what haunts the Rough Riders, over its many years, both staff and guests have reported a wide range of inexplicable occurrences, with those frequenting its bounds telling of disembodied laughter heard from empty spaces, of toilets that flush and showers and sinks that run on their own, even within locked rooms, and of objects sighted moving around on their own, or of personal possessions found in odd places. While a slew of experts have pored over the building and associated land's histories, no formal explanation has ever been pinpointed as to why this weathered establishment harbors the level of activity that it does. And also reported across the premises are shadowy figures that stalk about, instances of covers being ripped from sleeping guests in the middle of the night, and encounters with the small spirit of a young boy who is also often heard through room doors playing in the hallways after dark. Number 3. Yunker Farm Park. Yunker Farm Park, which is located off of North University Drive out of Fargo, North Dakota, is a site preserving what is purportedly the first brick house in the whole of the Dakota Territory, being that of its namesake, Yunker Farm. Historically, in 1876, this weathered structure was completed under the Whitman family, who would fashion a schoolhouse adjacent, and incidentally, a plaque on its museum honors said campus as the oldest rural schoolhouse still standing in the state. On their property, the Whitman family would raise livestock and harvest grain on surrounding landscapes, until 1905 when they'd sell their estate to John and Elizabeth Yunker, who would go on to raise their 10 children within. Following John's passing in 1929, Elizabeth would continue to run farm operations, raising rafters of turkeys to support her family. Eventually, Whitman's son Lawrence would take over the farm until his retirement, and in 1968, the family would finally part with the property and sell. In 1985, the old farm estate was donated to the Fargo Park District, following which, with the assistance of volunteers and generous financial support, through November of 1989, the Children's Museum at Yunker Farm was open to the public. While said Children's Museum has since recently ceased operations, Yunker Farm Park remains open to the public, offering a dog park, playground, picnic sites, the Northern Plains Botanic Garden, a mess of trails, and more, and a number of plans are underway for use of the building that was previously the museum. Over its lengthy history, Yunker Farm has long been shrouded in tales of encounters with the unknown, and those who have frequented its bounds have reported instances of lights flicking on and off by themselves, odd noises or disembodied voices that emanate from thin air or seemingly from within the walls, and the constant feeling of being closely watched. One of Yunker's more famous presences, and honestly guys, this one gives us major 2002 opening night of The Ring flashbacks, is that of a little girl who's often sighted standing next to a well. As legend has it, long ago this girl either drowned or was murdered by way of drowning within this very well, and those who have neared the site have described chest pains and a horrifying shortness of breath that many claim are the same final sensations she felt just before her death. Also reported across Yunker are instances of doors and windows opening and closing on their own, objects sighted moving by themselves, and documented incidents in which the elevator randomly stops working or seemingly moves of its own volition, resulting in maintenance calls which always turn up cleared. Lastly, the ghost of Elizabeth Yunker has been known to appear from time to time, and even when not visible, her calming presence has been felt pouring over entire rooms. Elizabeth seems especially fond of the upstairs where younger children's activities were previously held. Subsequently, many tell Liz loved children in life, and that her soul was very happy when the Children's Museum was in operation. Unfortunately, however, since its closing, appearances by her have become increasingly more rare. Number 2. Dickinson. Dickinson, which is located in southwestern North Dakota, is a historic town acting as the seat of Stark County that, from the time of the 2006 to 2015 North Dakota oil boom, has become one of the quickest growing cities in the whole of the US. Historically, through the mid-19th century, some of the first non-native settlers to the region would arrive, and at the time, it was documented the locale was inhabited by Mandan, Dakota, and Lakota, or Sioux tribes, who utilized surrounding lands on which to camp and hunt. In 1880, what was then called Pleasant Valley Siding would establish itself as a popular stop along the Northern Pacific Railway. In 1882, this populace would re-establish itself as Dickinson after railroad official Wells S. Dickinson, who plotted the town site, and after a period of rapid expansion, by the end of 1882, the new community of Dickinson would boast nearly 100 structures of all different shapes, colors, and sizes, most of which that dotted local tracks. On May 25th of 1894, the Dickinson public school system would host its first commencement exercises, and later in 1918, a state normal school was established to train teachers amongst other professions. Over the years, Dickinson has continued to grow and expand, and currently boasts a population of around 25,000, offering a slew of museums, parks, historic sites, and more, all of which further boost a secondary economy supported namely off tourism. Through its lengthy history, a range of ghost stories have been shared and passed through generations of Dickinson community members, with both locals and visitors reporting a range of paranormal activity. A spectral entity has been observed drifting about the Prairie Hills Mall when the building is supposed to be closed and empty, warranting several police searches that always turn up empty-handed, while those frequenting the ear, nose, and throat clinic have told of toilets that flush on their own, and of the constant feelings of being watched or of being followed early in the mornings, that some attribute to the spirit of a former doctor who drowned while on a fishing trip. St. Joseph's Hospital is said to host an assortment of presences, with staff, visitors, and patients telling of disembodied voices crying and moaning, of instances of nurses being called to vacant rooms, of children's giggles, and of the sounds of kids playing heard emanating from the old admin offices and basement, and that the elevator to the morgue has a habit of running on its own through the night. Lastly, the Lion House, which is also known as the McGillivray House, and which was constructed circa 1895 under Alexander C. McGillivray, has seemingly been under the process of renovation for at least 2 decades. Strangely, while multiple buyers keep scooping the site up, not one of them has finished the long-anticipated project, as all new owners end up leaving before its completion. Some claim due to rampant supernatural happenings experienced on site. As stories tell it, long after the McGillivrays inhabited this aged abode, a man, his wife, and their children resided there, until one fateful night, in a moment where almost certain paralleled stories of the Amityville horror murders, the man snapped and killed his entire family within, before barricading the doors and hanging himself in the upstairs bedroom. While it's unknown how much truth, if any, there actually is behind this chilling fable, those who have frequented the house's grounds have reported extreme cold spots, disembodied voices and footsteps, and extreme uneasiness, and encounters with various frightening manifestations. Number 1. The University of North Dakota. The University of North Dakota, which is based out of Grand Forks, is a prestigious public research institution, acting as one of the only schools of medicine and of law in the whole of its state. Historically, in 1883, UND was founded just 6 years before North Dakota's statehood, and on September 8th of 1884, some of its first classes were held, with the campus's first structure, Old Main, accommodating classrooms, offices, dorms, and a library all in one. As UND grew through the years, its campus would welcome the construction of a number of buildings, alongside the installation of a trolley which connected its bounds to that of downtown Grand Forks. In 1918, UND classes were suspended in order for the campus to act as an army base through World War I, with school proceedings continuing following, and after a second such lull through World War II, enrollment numbers would skyrocket to over 3,000, requiring the construction of additional housing and academic facilities. To date, UND has continued its growth, and more recently, through August of 2021, it would become the first participant in the U.S. Space Force's University Partnership Program. This prominent institution remains open into the present, accommodating around 14,000 students while offering more than 225 different fields of study. Chillingly, and not dissimilar to other universities of its status, a slew of campus legends and ghost stories have persisted through generations of faculty and alumni alike, with those braving its bounds telling of odd encounters within many of its historic structures. At the John C. West Hall, electronic malfunctions are common, and the entity of a girl with short black hair and no legs has been observed drifting about, while within the Gamma Phi Beta sorority, objects move on their own, knocking and scratching sounds are heard from within walls, and various sisters have told of run-ins with a specter that's since been dubbed Clara. Within Stacker Hall, many report phantom wafts of old-fashioned perfume smelled when no one else is around, the constant feelings of being followed or of being watched by someone unseen, instances of the disturbing image of an arm sighted lying on the floor outside of the doorway to the second-floor graphics darkroom that always disappears upon second inspection, and a female entity that frequents the computer lab and causes unnatural breezes within the sealed room. Gustafson Hall, which was constructed in 1908 and initially served as a frat house, now holds the main continuing education program offices. In 1918, amidst its stint as a frat, the hall would be transformed for a period into an infirmary to fight the Spanish flu epidemic, during which time 10 to 12 of the 29 total fatalities to transpire at UND would do so right within this very hall. Additionally, in 1963, a soldier would drink himself to death while visiting the frat, and it's now believed its rather morbid history has resulted in a range of hauntings, with those frequenting its bounds telling of disembodied voices and footsteps heard from empty spaces, of the unnerving feeling of never truly being alone, and of encounters with both shadowy figures believed to be the souls of those lost to the flu, and with the hall's most famous apparition, who has since been dubbed Gus. Tragically, on October 16th of 1971, the Sigma Alpha Epsilon frat would catch fire, resulting in the deaths of 2 students, being of Pamela Stern and of Tony Stein. Now, those who frequent this very structure tell a bulk of the expanse is haunted by Pam's spirit, who watches over women that stay there, and who sometimes materializes in mirrors or reflections to those she feels fond of. Sadly, Tony's spirit is also rumored to linger, albeit in the basement where he perished while trying to escape the blaze. Several who have braved the basement have told of a depressing anxiety that overcomes them, that many suspect are the final emotions felt by poor Tony just before the end. And finally, the Burtness Theater is shrouded in stories painting its premises as haunted by up to 5 separate presences. While the first 2 of said presences have been known to get malevolent from time to time, a third and possibly the most popular spirit at the theater is rumored to be that of one Stu, a former UND student who passed through the 1970s and who was known by his friends to be quite the handyman, especially with electrical work. In life, Stu cherished the theater and was often called to the Burtness for maintenance issues, and it's quite simply theorized that following his demise, his soul returned to the place he so loved. A 4th theater presence has been known to manifest as a mysterious woman in a Victorian-era dress who wanders around backstage, while a 5th spirit, who it's believed belonged to a homeless man that died on site long ago, has been known to play ominous tunes on the piano through the middle of the night when the building is closed and locked. Taking its extensive and surprisingly dark history into account, and coupling it with such a formidable range of purported hauntings and associated claims of encounters with the supernatural, we felt UND was the perfect choice as this list's most haunted place in North Dakota. Thanks for tuning in for our picks for some of the most haunted places in North Dakota. If you enjoyed hearing our histories and ghost stories, subscribe to our channel, like this upload, and share us with anyone you feel could use a good scare. Pleasant dreams.